You know, one of the hardest things about doing this work is not just the belief rewiring, the emotional intelligence, the shadow work. It's not just the internal part. It's realizing that some of the people you love the most, your family, your friends, might not be able to walk beside you anymore on your journey. And not because you've done anything wrong and not because they have either, but because who you're becoming no longer fits the dynamic that you built together. And it's confronting when this happens. It can feel really uncomfortable. It can feel like grief. It feels like rejection. And it can feel really deeply, it aches, almost aches in your nervous system, especially when someone says those words to you, you've changed. So it's often said like, you've changed is a bad thing, like you've betrayed the version of you that they knew. And here's the truth. They're right. You have changed. You've done the work or doing the work. The work never ends. You've met yourself in ways you never have before. You're healing, you're growing, but not everyone is going to celebrate you. So this conversation today is not about blaming or shaming friends or family who don't maybe get it. It's about understanding why friendships can shift when you grow, what it brings up in you and them, how to be okay, how to detach, and how to navigate it without abandoning yourself anymore. Welcome to the Pursuit of Myself, the podcast. Here we take ownership of our healing. We rewrite the rules, we turn knowledge into wisdom, and we lead our lives with intention. I'm your host, Rayne, and it's my mission to empower you to get back into the driver's seat of your life. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Pursuit of Myself. It's been a really big week, and if you were listening to the episode last week on setting intentions and planning and the importance of that, hopefully you went through my step-by-step guide on how to actually set yourself up for the rest of the year. I took myself out to dinner this week, just me and my business, because as we know, we have to have a relationship with our business. So my relationship that night consisted of pizza and a glass of red wine. But I really started to go even deeper into what I want to achieve this year and why. I have my 2025 goals, and now I've broken them all down into step-by-step guides so that I can keep myself accountable. What needs to be achieved this week? What needs to be achieved by the end of the month? What needs to be achieved in 90 days? Because as much as we set the intentions and we need to keep ourselves accountable, putting in markers along the way of how you're going and what's working and what's not, it gives you more of an opportunity to pivot quickly. You see, we don't want to get to the end of the month and be flabbergasted that things haven't been on the trajectory that we wanted. When we check in with ourselves all the time, we get to say, hey, what's going on now? Is this working? Is this not? And we get to move quickly. So in business, and I'm going to talk about in friendships coming up, our ability to move quickly is what will separate you from wasting energy and wasting time, from procrastinating, from avoidance, and getting you back on track with where you're going and what you want to achieve. So it has been a really big week. I've got some stuff happening in the business. I've got a massive launch happening. We're going to start in the next couple of weeks. So I'm feeling really, really aligned, really, really authentic, really excited to bring some more opportunities for you to grow, whether it be in business, whether it be in your marriage, whether it be healing from a relationship. So love that you're here. And let's just get straight into this episode, because I know it's one that it's really one that I talk to a lot of my clients about, whether they've gone through Align and Elevate or whether they're one-on-one. This friendship topic is really, really big, because we are human beings who love and require connection and belonging. And when people drop off, it feels really inhumane. It feels really disconnected, and it feels like we're not doing enough. We're not scrambling. We're not white knuckling to fix things, to keep things. So today I want to really open Pandora's box on the why. I want to give you permission to grieve. And I want to basically, the biggest part to this is give you an understanding, insight into yourself so that you can let go, allow, disconnect, and be okay with whatever transpires as long as you are in alignment and you are in authenticity and intentional about where you're going. So let's get stuck into it. So the first bit of understanding is that friendships are really mirrors. Our friendships reflect our beliefs, our patterns. They tell us how worthy we are, whether we think someone doesn't have time for us. They really do go into a huge self-worth spiral. We measure ourselves up against our friends. We compare ourselves to our friends. And a lot of the times we actually do this silently until things start to shift. And then it's like a big beacon of light gets shown as we grow, whether or not we're moving, we're changing, whether or not we are in alignment. And so this is what I want to talk about today, because friendships also show us where we are and where we aren't comfortable. It shows us what we're avoiding. It shows us where we're abandoning ourselves. It shows us so many things about our self-worth and our inner circle. And if we aren't willing to open the eye and look there, then it just gives ourselves permission to stay the same, and it can keep us really stuck in a loop cycle. When you start changing your beliefs that you have, when you start changing your patterns, when you start healing, the reflection of the friendship changes. And sometimes the people in your life don't like the new image that they see in the mirror. So here's the thing. Many people are invested in the version of you that they first met. And this goes for family as well. When we are with our parents and siblings and cousins and aunties and uncles, people are invested in a version of you that you have become. Maybe it's the version who laughed off their digs and sarcasms. Maybe it's the version of you who complained and whinged with them. Maybe it's the one that had the gossip. Maybe it's the version of you that was failing and always needed support. Maybe it was the strong version of you that constantly was there for everyone else. Maybe it's the version of you that kept your head down and didn't take up too much space, didn't challenge anyone. The version of you that always was there for every other person and never asked questions or needed anything for yourself. So you can understand when that version, whatever that version is for you, disappears, the ground shifts, things change, and not everyone is ready, willing, or happy to adjust. So as we grow, we've got a version of ourselves here. We've got a higher self of our version here. And as we are peeling back and removing these layers, it can be really uncomfortable because people, your friends, your family, they are like, oh, what are you doing? I don't understand what you're doing. I don't connect with what you're doing. I've connected with this version of you for so long. This is actually making me uncomfortable. So you can see the double uncomfortableness that happens. You're uncomfortable because you're changing and you're looking for evidence that people are still going to like you and connect with you. And they're uncomfortable that you're changing because they don't know where you're going and they don't recognize a version of you that you're becoming, right? So there's this side of both of the friendships that tends to, I will say the words like explode or blow up together, right? Unless we can have these conversations, unless you can meet people where you're at, it's going to feel like a disconnect or a blow up. So you can imagine that you have all these masks that you wear and your friend or family is connecting with those masks. You're shedding those masks. You're shedding the people pleasing, you're shedding the perfectionism, you're shedding the overworker, you're shedding whatever it is, and they don't understand who you're shedding into. So it's very disconnecting for them and very uncomfortable. When we start doing this work, we often expect our friends to come meet us in this new energy. Right? We want them to celebrate us. We want them to celebrate our new business. We want them to cheer for the boundaries that we're setting and for the growth that's happening. We want them to kind of be inspired by the courage, and maybe it's that you've left the relationship. Maybe you're starting to take risks. You're rewriting and you're healing your story. But sometimes they can't. And it's not because they're bad people, but it's because our change challenges their world view. The change that we are becoming challenges the way that they might view the world. If they're not doing the work themselves, our growth can feel like a threat to the unspoken agreement of the friendship. It's like I liked you better when you stayed the same because then I didn't have to question myself. And we can see this a lot when, let's say, we have a friend that's starting to have a really successful business, possibly like mine, the one no one really understood when I started doing Reiki, when I started to do the energy work. I had very little people in my world celebrate me. I had very little people clap me, encourage me. It was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I don't even understand what it is. It's the same when let's perhaps get the courage up to leave a marriage. Why would you do that? I don't understand. We could have been miserable together, right? And the most uncomfortable feeling is that you finally got all this courage up to not question your intuition, to not question yourself, and you found this courage to make this bold statement. And the first thing that the body and the brain and the mind does is it looks for evidence that it's safe to do what you're doing. So when it comes to actually growing and making this change, it's why it can take a really, really long time. Because not only are we having to find the courage to shed layers that no longer serve us, we're finding the courage to build in a business, to change career, to get in a relationship, to get out of a relationship. But then we look for evidence that we're actually going to be safe in it. And what happens is if all the people around you are projecting onto you that it's either bad or they don't understand you, or that, it's going to change your version for them, the projection, the rejection, the lack of understanding and empathy will pull you back down. When someone projects onto you, when they project that they don't support you. And this isn't saying that we have to understand and support everything that our friends do, but there's one side of things that's supporting and another side of allowing people to be in their own journey and growing. And when someone is not supporting your journey of growth, that can feel like a massive weight on the bottom of your feet. And that is when they project onto you. The understanding comes here that what is happening is they're actually really talking and projecting about themselves, their fears, their insecurities, their unhealed stuff, right? And the fact that you're growing is making it uncomfortable for them because maybe it's shining a light on something that they have been not brave enough to look at, or they've shoved down, or they don't see how they can move through theirs. So suddenly that connection of where the thing that you were connecting on is no longer there. And instead of supporting your journey, they direct their unhealed fears and insecurities onto you. So, I think let's say if you leave your marriage, and I get this a lot with my clients who are healing from separation and divorce, and they say that a lot of friends disconnected from them. But when they reflect, it's generally the ones that are actually really unhappy in their own relationships because they have been connecting on the unhappiness and connecting on the let's get out of the house for so long that one of the friends actually builds up the courage to do something about it, and then it shines a light on the other person. So it's really hard to be in supportive and connect when all that's happening is you're projecting, or you're feeling like you're getting projected on. And that is one of the half truths about friendships, whether they've been long-standing friendships, whether they've been 20 years, 30 years. We go back to saying that friendships are mirrors, right? It's the same if you start your own business and it triggers a belief in your friend that it's too risky, or you're going to fail, or I don't understand what you're doing. So instead of being supportive of your journey as a friend, their triggers are projected onto you, which creates that disconnect, that rift in the friendship. And maybe for years, let's just say, you took everything that you worked on together and everything you connected on together. You absorbed, the doubts, the jokes, the subtle digs. But now, as you're growing, things kind of land a little bit differently because you're no longer available to continue in that story, to continue in that version of you to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. And that's basically what it is. When we talk about comfort zones, we talk about knowing someone, being able to predict someone's move, being able to know that when you say something, you're going to get this back. And, deciphering between having a friend be there for you or be a certain version of who they are for you, there is a really big difference there. And and you'll know it, because when someone will say to you, you've changed, and it's not meant as a compliment, it can hit really, really hard. So what happens here is your nervous system hears you've changed as rejection. They hear you've changed as I don't like you. I don't support what you're doing. Your inner child hears you're not enough as you are now. Maybe we need to go back to that version, or we're going to get rejected, or we're going to get abandoned. And our wiring tells us keep long-term connections at all cost, because whatever's familiar feels safe. Whatever we think we know feels safe. Remember when I was saying whatever we can predict someone's, because it feels good. It feels safe and familiar when you feel like you can predict how someone's going to be, how they're going to react, how they're going to show up for you. But safety and alignment are not the same thing. Being safe in a relationship doesn't actually mean that you're growing. I'm not saying that safety is a bad thing, but feeling safe in a relationship when you're out of alignment, when you're abandoning yourself, when you're not on the trajectory that you want to be on, we can't continue to fall back into that safety zone and expect that things in our life are going to actually change. We hold on to this romance of history, like I've been friends for 30 years. I've known this friend since I was 5. We share inside jokes, we share milestones, so many memories, and maybe marriages and travel and children and, you fill in the blank for yourself. But that nostalgia can keep us in friendships that are no longer healthy for us. And this isn't to say it's time to cut and run when we don't think it's healthy. There are steps I'm going to take you through, but if the connection now, right today, and ask yourself this, if the connection now is built on guilt, on obligation, it's quietly draining you. It is leaking energy, and it will be affecting the way you show up every single day. Over time, the leaking energy, it can impact your emotional health, your energy, even your physical well-being. If we are white knuckling on because we feel guilty or we feel obligation, is that a true connection? Is that a friendship that you want? Or is it something that is draining you? We do feel the pain when friendships start to feel a little bit off. Maybe a little comment stings. Maybe we get, when that resentment starts to rise and you get a little bit snappy. Maybe you feel really dismissed, unseen, unnoticed. Maybe you start noticing different things, like they offload on you and they talk all the things to you and tell you all their problems. But then the moment you go to speak, they don't interrupt you. They can't hear you. They don't listen to you. So when these sort of scenarios are happening, we have two choices. We either avoid talking about the things that light us up, and we blame the fact that we're not going to be seen, we're not going to be heard, or you can pause and ask, is this discomfort pointing to something in me that now needs healing? Is this discomfort requiring me to be a bit vulnerable and have a voice and ask for what I need? Because the discomfort, it's very, very easy to sit back and say, well, they don't provide me what I need anymore. They can't see me in this. They don't accept the way that I am. They don't agree with how I'm showing up. I've noticed that when they go and offload on me and then they leave and I feel drained, right? But also the question that you need to ask yourself is, are you asking for what you need? It is so easy to look at the external circumstance. It's so easy to look at the people or the person and point the finger and the blame. But as we know in this work, this is about putting the onus back on ourselves. Are you being vulnerable enough to ask for what you need? Are you the one that's growing? And do you want to keep this connection alive? Can you speak about your newfound dynamic? Can you talk about where you're going? Or do you make excuses and say they're not going to understand? I don't want to hurt their feelings. I know that Susie has been wanting to start a business for 5 years, and here I am starting one in 6 months. I don't want to trigger her or make her feel bad. At what point do we blame the other person for the connection failure? Can we actually turn around and say, am I showing up in this friendship fully? Am I asking for what I need? Do I really want to keep this connection? And is it worth asking for support in this dynamic? And you get to decide that, because when we're triggered in the friendships, that is your roadmap. The triggers are so powerful. They can be your guide for healing, and they can also be a sign to take a step back. So here's the process that I want you to sit with. Maybe journal it, voice note it, whatever works for you. So when it comes to friendships, the first thing that I'd like you to ask is, am I being honest and vulnerable in this friendship? Or am I showing up as the old me to keep them comfortable? Because if we are pointing a finger out and we're wanting to cut off a friendship, or we're feeling like we have to cut off a friendship, the first question is, are you being honest and vulnerable yourself? If you want more connection, more honesty, more vulnerability in a friendship, the question is, are you being that yourself? The next question I would ask is, am I sharing what I would like in this connection? Or am I silently expecting them to meet me where I'm at without even telling them? And this will happen a lot, because as we gain our confidence in different areas and we're growing, are you able to share what your growth is feeling like? Are you able to share and ask about the connection that you and, let's say, your best friend have? Are you able to share what you would like it to look like now? Hey, Suze, I absolutely freaking love you. I am so on this journey, and I know it's uncomfortable for us, but can you try and just meet me where I'm at? Am I able to share with you? Am I able to speak with you? Because I feel like if I do, then you shut me down. Can we try and really build this? It's about having open conversations about where you're going, because what happens is we actually put ourselves in a situation where we expect that the person is going to meet us where we're at. And they're like, who the hell are you becoming? I've got no idea who this is. And it's like, oh God, I'm not being held. I'm not being seen. They don't know who I am. But are we able to share how we want this connection to be? Are we able to share who we're becoming? Are we able to be honest and vulnerable in this friendship? Because when we have expectations on friends to be like loving the new business and celebrating you leaving your marriage, and it doesn't also give room for your friend to be authentic about what they're going through. So as much as we are wanting someone to meet us where we're at, can you meet your friend where they're at? Can you understand that, yes, this might be uncomfortable for them? Can you understand that they are probably doing their best to start recalibrating what's going on with the connection between you two? Can you understand that what you are doing is a mirror for them? So can you also hold space and be there for them as much as you're expecting them to be there for you? Not everything has to be blown up and left and moved and cut off. This is an opportunity for you to go inwards. And this is another growth opportunity with what is going on for you outside, wherever you're growing. Can you turn in and say, am I being honest and vulnerable? Am I asking for my needs to be met? What would I like this connection to be? And they're the top question. The next question is, am I letting go of this connection just to avoid discomfort? Or does it genuinely no longer align with who I'm becoming? So what can happen is, instead of being vulnerable, being honest, asking for connection, asking to be seen, we let go of a friendship, because part of it is like, we don't want to feel uncomfortable. We just want to be able to point the finger and say it's because they're not supporting me, they don't see me. And it's a lot easier just to cut and run. But part of your growth be you genuinely sitting in the discomfort? And could part of your growth be letting go of the connection because it actually is no longer aligning? Or are you doing it to avoid the discomfort of actually having a conversation? There's no right or wrong in this, but the power and the connection and the friendship is in the honesty. Now, if you feel like you've had a friendship that has been connected on a soul level and not on a mask level or on a circumstantial level or not on a behavior level, then that is something that I know so many of you are willing to do. It's to be vulnerable, have the conversation. But maybe sometimes friendships actually disband because the true friendship maybe wasn't there in the beginning. If you are constantly abandoning yourself to people please someone, if you are constantly, having to do all the things to make other people happy and not your own. So you do really get to ask yourself, what type of friendship am I showing up for here? What type of connection am I standing up to here? What do I want in my life? For me, it's really interesting because, yes, I had a lot of people drop off in this work, but I've had a lot of people come. And when we are constantly white knuckling for connections to stay, if you could look at it as, a full glass and there's no room for anything else. So you're shedding all these layers, but you're white knuckling everything to come in and be part of you so that you feel okay about your change. Once we can get honest, once we can not abandon ourselves, I think the fear of letting go comes also rooted in, am I ever going to feel loved? Am I getting rejected? We hate being rejected as human beings. We hate it. And when we get to the core root of, am I going to be okay if this friendship has a disconnect? Am I going to be able to grieve? Am I going to be able to move on? Is this friendship going to create a beautiful space for something more aligned to come in? I know when I started doing so much of my work, I realized that I was the one showing up, let's say, fake or with masks on to keep connections that were enforcing this person that I was. Whereas when I started to grow and the friendships dropped off, it wasn't anyone's fault. It was because I was growing and becoming something that I hadn't actually met in myself before. And what happens is when they drop off, we create space for people to come in and connect with us on that deeper level that we're actually asking and that we're actually here for. But the letting go part, the grieving part, the getting radically honest part with yourself about what you're wanting and about your discomfort is the first step into understanding that true connection really lies in your ability to be honest and your ability to be vulnerable with someone and your ability to show your heart with someone. We really are beings that require so much connection. And for so many of my clients who are seeking relationships, who are seeking, connectedness, who are seeking community, the question that I want you to ask yourself is, how am I showing up? Am I consistently abandoning my authenticity, my heart, my alignment just to try and keep some friendships going? Am I showing up every single day in the alignment that I'm wanting to attract? And if the answer is yes, then you know that you're actually okay with having friends and connections drop off. But if the answer is I'm scared and I'm still abandoning myself, then I want you to ask yourself, what are you actually white knuckling? What are you hoping to achieve out of gripping onto something so tight that isn't part of you or isn't part of who you are becoming? Because at the end of the day, we really are allowed to change. We are put on this earth to change. We have to change. We have to grow. If someone doesn't change, that's a scary, scary thought, right? You're allowed to grow past the people that you love. But I want you to ask yourself, are you able to allow the people that you love to grow and change and still hold them in that space? Are you able in relationship to cheer on your partner when they are growing and changing and creating? Or do you feel like they're abandoning you, like they're rejecting you? Do you feel a bit lost? Do you feel a bit scared, a bit in fear that change might result in something that you don't know the outcome of? You get to ask yourself that question as well, because you're allowed to change without turning anyone into a villain, and without making yourself wrong for evolving. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a friendship and for yourself is to really release it with compassion, release it without judgment, and just let it be. Let go of the anger. We're not releasing in judgment. It's just with that beautiful, quiet knowing that both of you are now free to become who you are meant to be. And if you can't hold the mirror to yourself and allow yourself to do that, then you can't hold that mirror up for someone else to do that either. So the beautiful, compassionate release of a friendship is actually such a welcomed thing in my life if that is the direction that two people are going. If I have been honest, if I can hold that person to their highest in compassion and love. But if I am abandoning myself and disconnecting and running, then that is the question. But who you are becoming that change that is needed to become that highest version, to become that successful, abundant, wealthy. I haven't even touched on jealousy. I haven't touched on any of that because really, it's just another way that we can point a finger and say that person's jealous. Whereas what I want you to do with this podcast, my podcast intention and all of my work's intention, is to bring it back home for yourself. How are you showing up? How are you showing your connection? How are you showing your authenticity? How are you showing your unconditional love? And if you can do that and get really radically honest with yourself, then you can create the most beautiful connected relationships that you absolutely totally deserve in the future. But hold space for yourself and hold space for that and allow things to be as they need to be so that connections can grow into whatever they're supposed to.